and gals, and welcome. Welcome. Well, I kind of ignored the public test realm for Diablo 4. I kind of ignored it. It's the last day. I don't even know how much time I have left, but we can come check out some stuff, I guess. Like, why not? I don't really have, like, everything super set up, but we can at least come in here and check and see what they changed. I think the bulk of their changes revolved around leveling up new characters, so I might actually need to, like, get a brand new character, go level them up, and see how that process is. So we might be grabbing like some random character and just doing a level up process. Maybe I'll do ice shards with the sorceress, since that's one of the new unique items is the ice shard uniques, and we'll see if we can get our hands on an ice shard unique. I should go to a sorceress. That's what I should do. I mean, I remember the unique items. We can pull them up here real quick, and I can bring them on the screen. So there was the Spiritborn item, which was the Sunbird's Gorget, which had to do with storm feathers. I'm not like overly interested in that one. It seemed kind of neat, but I don't know. Then there's the Hail of the Verglass. That was the Ice Shards one, which does seem kind of interesting. Then there's the Rogue one, which is based around the Poison Trap, which is kind of neat. Poison Trap getting some love, isn't it terrible? I don't really know about the Necromancer one. The Necromancer one seems kind of stupid. And then there's this one, Gathlin's Birthright seems really powerful. And the Barbarian one, which is the Mighty Throw one. I still haven't played with Mighty Throw since they brought it out. I legit still have not played with Mighty Throw. Let's you know what, instead of diving into the unique items, which honestly I can like see what's going on with the unique items a mile away. It seems like the bulk of this entire change was around new characters, so I feel like we're probably better off just playing a new character. Like let's just hop on, let's play a new character, and let's see how it goes. So let's go ahead and just create a sorceress. Let's do confirm class. Give me the classic D2 sorceress. That's what I want. Which one's the classic D2 sorceress? I don't even remember. Like that? I don't know. I guess. Sort of. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Seasonal. Frozen Tears. I don't know. Just making stuff up at this point. Start on hard difficulty. What's up, pal? How's it going? You come to join me in Diablo 4 land? You shall be shunned by the rest of the community, like they shun me. If you throw your lot in with mine, you shall be shunned. It happens all the time. I still remember the first time I played D4, like half the people who were on like D1, they were just, I mean D2, they were just gone. They never came back. Did I accidentally make this character on like seasonal or something? Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Because all the characters that I copied over are non-seasonal. They're Eternal Realm, and this is a seasonal character. So, I would like to get that new unique item. So let's grab all uniques. We're gonna destroy the majority of this stuff, so don't worry. The only thing that I want is the new unique item, and then everything else is just gonna be leveling up normally. What was the new unique item again? I can't even remember. It was a hat, or was a... Scroll back down. Sorceresses was... Ancestral unique helmet. It's a helmet. Okay. Hail of the Vergas. Is it on the ground? It might be still on the ground. There's a couple helmets on the ground. We're not going to take any of this stuff for the leveling process. I actually really just want to get like the unique item and play around with the new unique thing leveling up. There is every possibility, by the way, that you could potentially find like the unique item early on as you're leveling. Like that's not impossible. Well, it would be a relatively weak version of it. This one rolled as a ancestral, so unfortunately we can't do anything with it. I'll put this in the stash though for later when we get to like a higher level, but unfortunately that means we're dead in the water there. I'll have to do it again. Hi GGM, are you done playing PoE 2? Or are you going to come back after the next update? I stopped playing for a month, but we'll check out the next update. I stopped playing after they banned me. It was for a silly reason. I got unbanned, but the moral of the story is it kind of like slowed all my momentum for like producing content for the game, and that just kind of like screwed me over. So I ended up just like not coming back. I will eventually come back. Like I have every intention of coming back at some point. There's the new update and the economy reset, which is coming on what, like April 4th or something. I'm gonna do that. I'll be back for the content. I'll be back for the economy reset. And hopefully the changes that they made to the game will have made it better. Right now, as it is, like if I had to give you like my ultimate opinion on Path of Exile 2, it's an absolutely amazing single-player game. If that's all you ever want to do is play single-player. Like if single-player is your only ask, then I mean that's exactly what it gives you. It gives you a single-player experience, and the single-player experience is, I mean, it's there, I guess. I probably shouldn't be destroying these items either, because I'm getting resplendent sparks and baleful fragments and stuff. Dang it. Wish I could, like, destroy these now. I totally just messed up. Huh. I don't know how I could fix that. I wasn't even thinking about that. I need to just, like, not even grab them. Maybe I can gamble it instead. What is it? Crafting materials, masterworking, all materials. Is it all materials? I don't really want to go down this road because that's just going to end up with way too much crap. Maybe we just level up like normal. Let's just level up like normal. So what would we do to level up in this new, brave new world? In the brave new world, there's apparitions, which I don't know if the apparitions are good for a low-level character, but let's go check them out. Let's go get our butt cheeks clapped. Let's go get our butt cheeks clapped. Let's go get our butt cheeks clapped. Why am I singing about a nasty thing? I don't know, but my butt cheeks gonna get clapped. Probably be good if I put my points in first before I went there, too. Like, that would probably be a good idea, actually, now that I think about it. I'm over here just, like, regular attacking monsters to death. This is great. Alright, hold on. Let's go back across the Doojank real quick. Stop right here. No, of course. Of course you gotta attack me. Of course. Ha. What are you gonna do now? I'm on the other side. Ow, ow, ow. Alright, so we're gonna do ice shards. Let's just do frostbolt. It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. And then we'll max out ice shards. And I'm gonna die. I'm trying to put in my points, hey. Rude. I need some weapons and some stuff, and I need to put it in the bank. Come on down, we got it. Gonna put it in the tank. Oh, dang it. That's the wrong way. Is that Belial shooting jank at me? What's Belial shooting jank at me for? Belial, don't be a punk. Gratitude rewards virtuous. What did I move the emote wheel to? I moved it to something. I got pissed at it and I moved it to some other button. Oh, there it is. V.
Thank you. I'm impressed. Sorry. Thanks.
Gold rains upon you and after your next kill. Okay. Pew, pew, pew.
What is this?
Okay. Press the eyeball. The eyeball. Moon path. Some pants. Okay, attack him. Sunscar girdle? What the hell is with these weird item names? I mean, I ain't complaining, but I'm just a baby, gotta love me.
Hello?
What's up, pal? What's going on?
I need to stop in my PlayStation controller when I play other games. Discord all default the microphone to my PlayStation controller.
Man, that's pretty much just par for the course.
Ugh.
I run into that problem on every freaking occasion too. Same thing. I be booting up my live stream and people are like, "We can't hear you," and I'm like, "What are you talking? We can't hear you." Like, oh, okay, man. Stupid thing defaulted to the wrong jank again. Okay, all right. Not my fault. I didn't do it. Give me some ice blades. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm hopped on D4 to check out the PTR before it ends. It ends today, so I waited long enough. I waited until the end of time.
Well, Shank and Eldridge TZ ended about a half hour ago, and they gave me a good amount of items.
Nice.
Specifically a green hood.
Congratulations. Go to Kmart to gear up. I'm trying to like experience this slower leveling process that they talked about. Like, how much slower is it? Is it actually slower? Like, what's the difference? Like, I don't know. I'm gonna go into the what is it? I'm blanking on D4 terms now. I erased all D4 knowledge from my brain, guys. You're gonna have to relearn it again.
I assume HellTides are the fastest still.
Depends on the season. Let's get some hoochie armor for my girl. Hoochie 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 armor, hoochie 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 armor. Get a little hoochie hoochie armor, got a little hoochie hoochie girl. She's gonna be a hoochie hoochie armor. Come on down to the hoochie girl. She gonna be a hoochie girl. That's pretty good. Give me a little pet. Where my little pet at? Where my Dorian the Crow? I spent a long time earning Dorian the Crow. Don't mind me, I'm just dying. I had to try and fix something today. Did a little soldering. I'm pretty sure the solder was made out of lead, so just dying from lead poisoning, it's no big deal. Wom, 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 wom. Yeah. Cody, did you farted? Cody, did you farted? You farted, didn't you? He did not didn't fart. It's funny when I ask him if he farts. If he farted, he looks one way, and if he didn't fart, he looks another way. Right now, he's got the "I didn't fart" face on. Cody, did you farted? Did you farted? That doesn't fart. I don't think so that I farted. One time he farted right in my face. I was bending down to put on my shoe or something. I can't remember what it was, and he like jumped up on the couch. And when he jumped up on the couch, his butthole was right in my face. And I heard right in my eye. Cody's trying to give me pink eye. I'll fart right in the eye. Right in the eye of the face. I have no clue what I'm doing right now. Core skills. Okay. Elemental dominance. Sounds like fun. Man, my girl is slow. She ain't got no run walk speed. It's always been crazy to me that literally, like, when you play these games, you're playing like a hero that has somehow like mastered the arts and is able to conjure flames or whatever, right? Like she's like the top of her order basically, and you're bringing her higher than what she would normally go, or he or she, or like it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like that they literally have the stamina. Yeah, like they have the stamina of like a 59-year-old like elderly mother with, I can't say grandma, but like elderly mother with, like arthritis in her hips. Like that's the speed at which they go when you find them. Like apparently somehow they graduated from like the finest spellcasting schools without ever having any kind of manual labor or like muscle mass of any kind. And she's obviously like, if you look like at the characters, most of them look like they're in their like 20s.
Yep.
I mean, I will say that like the leveling process seems slower. I'm only level 6 so far, which is kind of surprising. So like there's definitely a slower leveling there. I always kind of felt like the gear outpaced the characters like way too fast, so I guess that's not happening right now. Like I'm actually finding pieces of equipment that I can actually use, and I'm not just like immediately throwing the piece of equipment away. I mean, I like that. Does not matter leveling speed if you not share this experience with other people. What are you talking about, Phantom? Man, everybody can level up together if you want to. Diablo 4 doesn't have the same horrible grouping issues that Path of Exile 2 does. I'm gonna throw shade on Path of Exile 2 grouping until they fix it. Like every day. It's just gonna be like a constant thing. Man, this is a great group. You know who doesn't have great groups? Path of Exile 2. Oh my god, I think Cody is farting. This is terrible. Why you gotta start my stream with toots? Tooty tooter. I ain't even feed you nothing today. Gassy. Diablo 4, the game that keeps on changing. I mean, they have a direction that they're trying to go, but like, I don't know how they're ever going to reach it when like one hand is literally slapping the other out of the way. Like, let me set up a thought experiment for you so you can imagine like how Diablo 4's development has gone, okay? On one side of the equation is a old man who is very steadily and very dutifully trying to cross the street so he can get to his home. The home is the destination that he's always wanted to get to, and he's working very hard to reach that destination, okay? And he has never stopped trying to reach that destination. He is still walking toward his destination as fast as he possibly can, bless his soul. Now, there's another person. It's Flash, except this is Evil Flash. And Evil Flash has decided that the old man will never reach his destination. And so every single time the old man gets close to his destination, Flash picks up the old man and gently but very quickly moves him back across the street. At which point the old man sees that his destination has somehow gotten further away, yet he remains determined to try to reach his destination. And every single time the old man gets close to reaching his destination, Flash picks him up and moves him back across the street. And that's literally been the definition of Diablo 4's development since its beginning. There has been one hand trying to guide Diablo 4 in the correct direction, and that hand has been doing a good job guiding Diablo 4 in the correct direction. But there is another hand that keeps coming around and just smacking the good hand out of the way and undoing all of the fixes and all of the good things that the hand that is doing the right stuff is achieving. And it's like, it's literally the most frustrating thing in the world to watch them make the right choices, to move the game in the right direction, and then have the other hand just slap the other hand out of the way and be like, no, how dare you try to balance the game? We're unbalancing it again. And then immediately unbalance the game. And then the other hand just dutifully tries to fix everything. But it doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't matter no matter what happens, because there's always the evil Flash there to move the man back across the street and ruin everything that he's accomplished. It's heartbreaking. And there's no other way to state it other than that, because have there been good changes in Diablo 4? Yes. Have there been bad changes in Diablo 4? Yes. Have they steadily worked toward a goal of fixing the game and making it more stable and better? Yeah, they have. Have they undone pretty much every single patch where they literally have made the game better? Yes, they have. They literally go through the process of fixing the game and then slapping those changes like right out of existence. That'd be like if like some little kid came up to me and he's like, sir, can you fix my toy squirt gun? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can fix your toy squirt gun. Proceed to fix the toy squirt gun, use it, show him that it's fixed, and then as I'm handing it back to him, I smash it back on the rocks, and I'm like, okay, see, now I fixed the squirt gun. Here, take your broken squirt gun back. And the little kid's like, but, sir, I wanted you to fix it for me. And he's like, well, too bad. Like, I know how to fix it, but, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to. The crazy thing is like, I've fallen for this in the past many times. Like, I've fallen for it so many times. And what do you mean? Like, what are you guys thinking I'm talking about falling for? Well, like, this is nice. I like this slower leveling process. I think this is good. I think it's a good change for Diablo 4 overall. But do I think it's going to stay in the game? Based on previous experiences and everything else that I've ever, come across when it comes to Diablo 4, no, I don't think this is going to stay in the game. I think that it's a very good gesture by the old man who's trying to cross the street, but just like in the example where Flash keeps moving the old man back every single time he makes any progress, it doesn't matter. Like, this progress, I hate to say it, is just going to get undone by something that they add into the game later, and then they won't fix it. They'll just be like, we will we made the changes so that leveling was slower, and you're like, yeah, you did make the changes so leveling were slower, and they were pretty good changes. And then like 2 patches later, you completely undid the changes, and now leveling is even faster than it's ever been before. I don't even know how you achieved that, but somehow you just like completely undid the patch and also made it worse, all in like one fell movement. And they've done that multiple times over like the development of Diablo 4, where literally they'll fix something and then immediately break it and then make it worse than it was before. Like, hey guys, this one won't, this machine won't like shock you right in the balls anymore. We really fixed it so it doesn't shock you in the balls anymore. We're super excited about this. You sit on it, it works for a little while, then 1 patch later, now there's like 2 prongs and they're coming out and hitting both balls from both sides. And you're like, oh my god, it's worse than it was before. The next patch notes inadvertently made the glitch even worse than it was before. Our apologies. My bad. Oops. So I've not found a single rare item yet, but I am relatively low level. Usually the rare items don't show up until you hit like 10-ish, and I'm only level 8. So we'll see.
Rare items still don't mean anything.
Yeah, they do now. They do now. I mean, they
Not
don't mean
really.
anything in endgame, but they fixed the rare items so they actually have the right number of affixes now. So all the rare items that you'll find from level 1 to 60 until you get to ancestral equipment are basically the same as legendaries now. So they fixed them.
Well, after you hit 35, any bosses you kill automatically drop legendaries anyways.
Well, so rares can be turned into legendaries, so it doesn't matter. Basically, think about it like this. The reason why rares were useless is because they took away one of the affixes from the rare items, which was one of the stupidest things in the world to do. Then they added greater affixes, which just compounded the issue even worse because rare items don't have access to greater affixes. So now what they did was they gave the rare items back the affix that they took away, again undoing a mistake that they made literally in a previous patch, and then that everybody told them was stupid, by the way. And now that they are undoing that, it's still not going to make rares into endgame items because of greater affixes. Greater affixes still prevent rares from ever being endgame pieces of equipment, unfortunately. However, because of the fact that they actually have the right number of affixes now, they actually do compete with legendary items, and you can obviously turn any rare item into a legendary item by imbuing it. So, I mean, they've basically brought rare items back into the fold for at least levels 1 through 60 before you get access to your first ancestral items. They're still basically useless for endgame, though. Which I don't
think
whatever.
anyone will actually care about them still.
Well,
Even
that definitely
before
will
endgame.
grab them and use them. For leveling up process, especially if leveling is as slow as it seems to be. I mean, how long have I been playing? Like 30 minutes, and I'm only level 8. If this was the previous version of the game, I would have been level like 23 already. Like,
I don't know how you level up that fast. I've never leveled up that fast.
I mean, it sounds like somebody who doesn't know how to level up fast. Can never look in my inventory because there's always a monster to smack me in the eye, and I don't like it, no, not at all.
Then again, it's probably because I focus more on the new season mechanic and getting that questline done before anything else. And I'm usually playing solo as well.
I mean, solo or not, I mean, we're leveling process was extremely fast in previous seasons. Like, people were getting to level 60 in like 30 minutes. I've already been playing 30 minutes and I'm only level 9, so I mean, good sign. Good sign.
I guarantee it's not gonna stay that way.
I mean, that's what I just said. So, like, they make these changes, and they're good changes. I like this change. They make the changes, but the problem is that, like, at the end of the day, like, they don't stick with it. Like, they're like, oh, this is the right change, and then they just undo it in the next patch. Like, they'll, like... I'm trying to think of, like, a way that they screw with things. There's so many different ways that they've done it in the past. Like, they're like, oh, you know, players are doing too much damage, and we don't like the fact that you guys are doing so much damage. So we're gonna bring down your damage, you know, by like X amount, so that now you're only doing, you know, like 50% of the damage that you were doing before, right? And they'll leave that change in, and then they'll reduce the HP of the monsters in the entire game by like 50%, basically putting it right back to where it was. Like, okay, now all monsters in the game have 50% less HP than they had before, and you're doing 50% less damage than you were doing before. And so basically, at the end of the day, it's exactly the same as it was before. And, like, nothing changed. Literally nothing changed. And we're just like, oh, so you made a change and then undid it immediately. Congratulations.
Well, I don't think they're going to keep the slower leveling for live.
We'll see. People complain, but honestly, like, it was too fast. It was way too fast in season 7. I don't know if you played season 7, but when I said that, when I say that people were getting to level 60 in 30 minutes, like, I mean it. Like, they were literally getting to level 60 in 30 minutes, and that's not even power leveling. Like, we're not even talking about, like, having a higher level character power level you. We're talking about, like, literally just competent people, like, knowing where to go and what to kill, and basically building their character correctly, and going into, like, you know, the hardest difficulty modes as soon as they can possibly get there, and just leveling up almost instantaneously to, like, max levels. It's just stupid.
I think 30 minutes is a little excessive. I admit I leveled up fast, but not that fast.
So what they did was they took an average. So they have data, and they took an average of all the people that leveled up to 60, and they basically took, like, the really slow ones and the really fast ones, and they averaged them out with each other. And during the campfire chat, they were talking about, like, the average amount of time that it took for a player to get to level like 60 in season 7 versus the average amount of time it took them to get to level 60 in, like, season 6. And, like, they basically said that it was, like, in season 6, like, I could go back and look it up for the exact numbers, but it was something along the lines like this. It was, like, 18 hours average to get to level 60 in season 6. And then in season 7, it was, like, 7 hours average. So, like, across the board, every single person that hit level 60, it was 7 hours average. Some people were taking longer. Some people were being much quicker. Which, as I said, like, there were people that were hitting level 60 faster than that. They were literally freaking streamers that were hitting level 60 in 30 minutes. But and they even said that. They even said that in the campfire chat. They're like, and this doesn't even include the people that were literally, you know, like, top end, like, really fast players that were hitting level 60 in like 30 minutes. This was the average time across the board of everybody. And they were comparing it to season 6 numbers, and it was, like, astounding, the difference. I mean, it was almost like half, if not even less than half, the time it took to get to 60 in season 6. And it was no wonder that everybody was done with season 7 in like a week or 2 weeks. Like, I had like 5 characters leveled up and, like, all geared out, like, within a week. It was like 1 week went by, and I was already, like, fully geared out and kitted.
I think a better, like, comparison would have been for season, if they would have compared it to season 5, because season 6 was Vessel. So you had people actually slowing down and paying attention to the story. That's...
I feel like
I don't think that would have been a fair comparison if, like, a good portion of the player base were caring more about the story than leveling.
I mean, it's pretty easy to level up in the story, too, though.
I agree. But if you're actually stopping to read the dialogue, naturally you're just going to be a lot slower.
Man, this character is like wholly and just unfun to play. I gotta get some aspects and some like actual equipment.
I also, in Season 7, regretted building a sorcerer.
Regretted it.
Yeah, I regretted it.
That took way too long. There's so many monsters. I feel like I'm not doing bad on kill speed, but I mean, I'm still ending up just like really low EXP wise. I don't know. I've said it many times though during many seasons. I'm like, it really seems like that like one part of the dev team doesn't know what the other part of the dev team is doing. Like it really seems like one part of the dev team is working and struggling and trying to basically balance and make the game into a fun game for people to play. And it seems like the other side of the dev team is very strongly and very powerfully just like ruining everything dev team number 1 is doing. Like it really seems that way, and I can't explain it any other way. But it's crazy how specific the changes seem to be. Almost as if like it's like two. You know, what's the story of the two wolves? You know, like there's two wolves inside of you. Which one is good and one is evil? Which one survives, right? And it's and the man says, "Oh, well, it's whichever one that you feed the most." And it's like literally there's just like a struggle going on in the background of like Diablo 4 land, and they're struggling to try and figure out what direction they want to take the game, and it's like a tug of war. Like one side's pulling one way and one side's pulling the other way, and they have like no control over the actual direction of the game. The game's just kind of like spinning out of control, like some sort of like you know, like if there was like a plane, like a jet or something like that, and you had like two people in the front seat, and like one's pulling on the control and the other one's pulling on the control and the other one's hitting the levers, and like the two people are fighting over control of the frickin' plane, trying to keep it from crashing, and like they're just going any which way they want to go. Like that's what it seems like. Because we always see these like calm, like interesting, like mild-mannered patches like this one, which seems to seek to, you know, fix some of the issues of like leveling too quickly and how the gear is like basically trash for the most part until you hit level 60, and like there's a bunch of little things that they're trying to address. And then you always see like the crazy patches where it's like 10 million damage. Here's the sword of the gods, which one-shots all bosses, and you're like, wasn't there just like a big patch that literally sought to like bring the overall damage of the characters down to prevent like one-shotting of bosses and stuff like this? And they're like, yeah, so what? You want a Sword of the Gods or not? Like, not really? Well, too bad for you. You get it anyway. That was a trick question. And you failed. And you're like, oh, okay. Just one shot and everything now. And then the next patch, the next mild-mannered patch will be something oh, we realized that the damage of the players was a little too high, so we're adjusting all the damage downward, so that the players will not be so strong anymore. And then like all the characters will have like 0 damage again, and they like the boss fights will actually be hard. And then 2 seconds later, they'll patch in like some ridiculous buff for like the season journey, like the season powers or something, and the season power will be so strong it just completely nullifies any of the changes that they made. It's like, here, have 16 trillion% increased damage while you're picking your nose, and you're just got your finger like up your nose the entire season, and you're just like one-shotting everything. And that's literally been like every season. Even as far back as like season 2, like with the barber gem. Like they
Season
nerfed
1.
everybody in season 2, and then they gave us the Barber Gem, and the Barber Gem was just like adding up all the damage that we had, and then like multiplying it, and then like splashing it back in the monster's face, like
That
scalding
was
hot water like coffee at McDonald's.
season 1 was the
The
Barber.
Barber Gem was season 1. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
The Blood Powers were season 2.
Yeah. And that was the big thing about season 1 was the patch that literally nerfed everyone into the ground.
Oh yeah, and then there was freaking Blood Powers that were absolutely insane that season 2.
Yeah, season 2 was the Blood Powers, and yeah. Well, it was the pre-season 1 was the Horde patch that nerfed everyone into the ground.
Nerf,
For whatever
nerf,
reason.
nerf. Yeah, and then they undid it like one patch later. They nerfed everybody into the ground and then just undid it as soon as they could. I don't even know why they nerfed us if they were just going to undo it. And they did that over and over and over again for like season after season. They would nerf us, they would nerf everything, and then they would just like add like ridiculous items into the game.
Well, I think the problem with that first nerf was that the game was only out a month and everyone got nerfed to the point to where like I played Whirlwind Barbarian when on launch. I was able to do like I want to say Nightmare like 70s or 80s. After that nerf, I could barely do 40s. That's how bad it was.
Oh, their nerfs have always been heavy-handed. And their buffs have always been heavy-handed too.
There's no balance.
I imagine Blizzard has some sort of like big giant that has the strength of like 10 million men and like is trying to put together like a little tiny like Chinese figurine made out of like little tiny toothpicks, and like the Blizzard like tries to make a change to the model and like moves his hand just the tiniest little bit and the whole thing like shatters and falls underneath him. Like I mean the general idea of a big giant like trying to be gentle and make gentle changes is hilarious because that's what Blizzard is. It's like Blizzard's like this big giant monster and they try and make these little tiny tweaks, and the tiny tweaks always end up being like massive ridiculous changes. We're just gonna change this one little thing. Oh, and it's broken.
If only they made it so that there was a couple more things to do as you're leveling up. Like maybe not fighting the bosses, like the boss ladder, whatever they call it, I forget. But something more than just only HellTides and an entry level into the new season content.
So Diablo 3 started this. So in Diablo 3, they tried to do the campaign where you go back through the campaign, but the Diablo 3 campaign was so convoluted and so stupid that going back through it was a pain in the butt, and like most people couldn't even figure out like which part was the next part to go back through the campaign. So when Diablo 3 like was suffering from like, you know, people like replaying through the campaign and realizing how absolutely terrible the campaign was, they started to realize that like they didn't want to go back through the campaign anymore, and nobody wanted to go back through the campaign anymore because of how convoluted and ridiculous it was. In Diablo 2, the campaign is literally the whole game. Doesn't matter what you do; it's the whole game. Like a campaign is the game, and
But
you go
it's a
through the
good game.
campaign every single time. Well, in Diablo 3, you couldn't go back through the campaign because the campaign was like a convoluted mess of jumbled parts and teleporting all over the place, and the areas weren't like conjoined together properly. It was just it was horrible. And so they decided to invent adventure mode. Adventure mode was a mode specifically designed to compensate for the fact that the Diablo 3 campaign was awful and nobody wanted to go back through it. And the same things happened with the Diablo 4 campaign. Although the Diablo 4 campaign's not awful, it is big, huge, complicated, and it requires a lot of stuff to go through it, and there's no real good reason to go through the campaign. Unlike in Diablo 2, where you get a 20 life potion. You get +1 skills from Act 1. You get an imbue quest. You get +2 skills from Act 4. You get the frickin' 5 stat points in Act 3. You get another frickin' like socket quest in Act 5, and so forth and so on. And by the time you're done, like with Diablo 2's campaign, you've got frickin' what is it? 3 socket quests. +4 skills from every single difficulty, which adds up to 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You got 5 stats from every difficulty, which is 5, 10, 15. 20 HP bonus for every difficulty, which is 20, 40, 60. And so, like, you have a real reason to go back through the campaign, something that, like, actually matters. There's no reason to go back through the campaign in Diablo 3, and there was no reason to go back through the campaign in Diablo 4. So, adventure mode is what we ended up with, and adventure mode was I have to say that adventure mode was a step up from what we had in Diablo 3, which was going back through the campaign, which just felt awful. But adventure mode was a stopgap measure to, like, fix a problem that never should have occurred. Like, the campaign should have been more valuable. It should have been something that people wanted to go back through, you know, like Diablo 2's campaign, as opposed to something that nobody wanted to go back through. Like, you know how many times I'm probably going to go back through the campaign? Maybe once per expansion. Maybe. Like, when I played it originally, and maybe once per expansion after that. I might go back through once per expansion. And I don't know how many expansions there are going to be, but you know, they might rope me into a couple expansions at this point.
Yeah, the next expansion isn't supposed to be coming out till 2026. Despite them promising yearly expansions.
I come on here just to complain.
But that's another thing about Diablo 4 is that the first 60 levels are nothing. People want to just run through it so that they can get to the actual content of the game.
Well, they made the first 60 levels nothing. Like, they made it so that nothing drops of any consequence in levels 1 through 60. In Diablo 2, when you kill, like, hell, you know, like normal Diablo, like if you kill normal Diablo, my game just crashed. If you kill normal Diablo, you literally don't have to worry about anything. Like, you can get items from him. Like, you can get so opening up the wrong version of the game. You can get Soges, you can get Mage Frost Burns, you can get Mage Fists, you can get all sorts of pieces of equipment which might follow you through to, like, the rest of the game. So you might actually get to the point where, you know, you actually have, like, real and lasting equipment that is gonna, like, keep you going for the entirety of the game. Meanwhile, in Diablo 4, there's nothing that falls from 1 to 60 that is of any use. I guess the public test realm is down. Well, I got to play for a whole 48 minutes, guys. 48 minutes, boys. I mean, of what I was able to experience, it definitely did seem like the leveling process was much slower. It's my bad for not logging in sooner. I was too busy playing Diablo 2. Although, can you really blame me? Because lately Blizzard has been deliberately placing the launches of Diablo 2 Resurrected ladders in the absolute worst places imaginable. They're like, oh, Path of Exile 2 is launching today? Okay, well then Diablo 2 Resurrected ladder Season 9 is also launching today. And you're like, what? You couldn't, like, put it on a different day? Oh, no, we're not putting it on a different day. It's going to be the same day. You're going to have to choose between one or the other. And then Diablo 2 Season 10 comes up, and they're like, oh, and by the way, Public Test Realm 2.20 is going to be, like, the same week as Diablo 2 ladder start, and your butt hole stinks, and how about that? And it's like they're deliberately weaponizing Diablo 2 Resurrected launch dates. Like, when Diablo 2 Resurrected season starts, they're just weaponizing the season start and putting it in places to deliberately, like, impede people from either playing. I'm not sure what their goal is, whether they don't want people to play Diablo 2 or whether they want to use Diablo 2 as a method to get people to not play the other game. I don't know what they're doing, but it sucks. It sucks. So it looks like I've missed out on PTR then. At least I got to experience some of it. Let's take a look at some of the stuff and let's like you put our knowledge onto the equation.
Yeah.
So they said players were getting a legendary every 3 to 4 minutes within an hour of playing, and they don't feel like a legendary item quality being the only quality so early. We're making legendary drops during level up reduced. Magic items can have up to 2 affixes now. Rares can have up to 3. So rare items become actually useful again. The legendaries are still the best quality at maximum level. Of course they are, because you know, they got greater affixes on them. Overall progression speed and number of players reaching Torment 4 has over doubled. On average, it only takes 15 hours from level 60 to hit Torment 4. 50% of players hit Torment 4. I don't even think those numbers are right. I feel like most of the time when I'm playing a character, once I hit level 60, I'm in Torment 4 within like the same day, if not even less time than that. I mean, that seems, I guess that's maybe the average across the board, but 15 hours
It
is still really short. We're
it
adjusting
depends on
Torment
the build,
1 now
really.
starts at Pit Tier 10. Torment and Pit scaling is increased by 20%, and Torment 4 will be equivalent to Season 7 Pit Tier 76. So they're basically like increasing the difficulty of Torment. They're making it longer to hit the actual like level 60, which I, I mean, I think it would be fine to have a longer time to hit level 60 if level 60 actually meant something. Like if you could actually find anything in level 60 worth getting. Like as an example, like what if you could upgrade, like they gave you the ability to upgrade a legendary item into a legendary item, an ancestral. That way when you're leveling up and you happen to find like this godlike ancestral item, right? That you would have the ability to convert that godlike ancestral item, which has all the perfect stats, into an ancestral, and then it like rolls greater affixes or something. Like they're basically making it so that the entire journey from 1 to 60 is pointless. And while I do like the fact that they are increasing the time it takes to get from 1 to 60, it would be nice if in that process of 1 to 60 there were actually items and things that fell that actually helped you once you hit level 60 so that you could say, I don't know, take like one of your ancestral, or your legendary items and convert it into an ancestral or something. Um, the rare items being useful again is nice, but they also lowered the legendary drops, so it's pretty much just a catch-22. Like you're going to be forced to use the rare items because there's not going to be legendary items, and you're going to be imbuing the rare items into legendary items just to be able to get your legendary items at that point. I guess I shouldn't have waited all day. I was too busy this morning. I was soldering. I was soldering some doojanks. I was reflowing some doojanks on the back of a chip. It worked too.
Wait,
It worked. I was proud of myself.
0 to 60 is still a waste of time.
I mean, it's always been a waste of time.
They need to
Well,
actually make it worthwhile, or just start us at 60 at this point. Personally, I would prefer 0 to 60 to actually be worth my time.
I mean, you ain't wrong.
Cool, I'll run HellTides on every character until 60. Big whoop. And
Well,
get a bunch of trash gear that I'll never use.
since we didn't get to play ourselves, let's just go read what other people had to say. Let's go check out the Diablo 4 forums and let's see if there's any like posts on the forums, like of people's feedback for the new season. It's at least worth a look, right? It's worth a look see. Let's go to the PTR specifically. So PTR feedback. Druid feedback compilation thread. Season 8 patch is not designed for eternal players. 31 replies, 409 views. Let's take a look at this one. Is Season
Season
8
8
PTR, I see insane damage numbers with boss powers, of course. So seasonal players, no need to worry about anything. But what about the Eternal players? Glyph upgrades. I have a SPW Necro and Eternal that can clear pit 134 to 135 in Season 7. Now in Season 8, I can only clear like 100 maybe. So he's talking about like basically that the boss powers are apparently so broken that they just like undo all the changes again. So any kind of difficulty changes that they made are basically pointless since the boss powers are just ridiculously broken. I didn't get a
Shocker.
chance to play around with the boss powers.
Yeah, I think I saw like it was either Rob or Wadajo was just blasting through like a high pit tier, or when they went to fight Belial for the first time on World Tier 4,
Uh-huh.
they beat him in like 20 seconds. Not even.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I said when they announced the new boss. They're like, they have this whole graphic. I have a graphic here. Hold on. So they have like the
Like,
boss graphic, right? This is the boss graphic now. Ooh, the boss graphic, and they're talking about all the new bosses and the way that they work and like how they changed out the way the bosses function. And I'm like, okay, so you're making a season based around the one thing that you've notoriously never gotten correct is boss battles. Like you basically have never gotten boss battles correct, and like not even once. Like half the time we just walk in and one shot the boss, which is supposed to be like the hardest boss in existence, and you just walk in like boop, he's dead, right? Like what? So you have an entire season based around the thing that you can never seem to get correct. And I'm like, I guarantee you, there's going to be people just like one shotting the bosses, and you're like, oh, and you literally just told me Wudijo was just like walked in there and like one tapped the boss.
yep.
Which is exactly what I expected. It's exactly what I expected. Let's see what else is in here. Boss powers make the game trivial, and class fantasy is gone. So the boss powers, you made this game harder, and then you added this broken stuff that every class have to use to hit trillions and billions, and who knows what numbers. Where did the class fantasy go? Like, what the hell is this? I don't know. This needs to be addressed because these powers make the whole system you built on bosses totally a joke, and the whole game a joke. Like, it's not wrong. Like, he's not wrong. Like, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier about, like, one hand moving things in the right direction. Like, let's make the leveling harder and let's make the game harder in general, right? And it's the old man and he's walking across the street trying to make the game harder. And then here comes boss powers and then just knocks the old man on his keister and he has to like slowly get up because you broke his hip. And I mean, yes, they're making the game more difficult, but then they also just add boss powers that literally just completely break the game. Like none of it makes any sense. Like I don't even understand why you would even go through the process of making the classes weaker, making the game harder, making the leveling process harder, and then just completely reversing it by adding the boss powers in. But whatever. PTR assessment for Season 8. For the first 3 days, leveling was fairly easy. However, it looks like acquiring gear is going to be a grind. At level 25, I only had 2 legendary pieces. On the end game, Torment 4 is extremely difficult. Season 8 is going to be the season of the grind. Until you get your boss powers, apparently.
Yep.
My feedback from the season of PTR 8 PTR. Unskippable boss mechanics when your character is capable of burning through bosses' health feels awful. Well, this is a common tactic because Blizzard can't balance the HP of the bosses correctly. So, like you can pretty much just one-shot them out of existence, right? So the only way to prevent you from one-shotting the bosses out of existence is to have like moments where the boss cannot be damaged. Like when Duriel burrows under the ground or Duriel disappears into the flames or whatever. Like it basically just makes it so that it like elongates the fight. It's the only way the bosses literally last more than like a half a second. Boss timers waiting for the altar to return is too long. They said there was like a 15-second timer on the altar returning. Torment 3 bosses dropping 750 loot and having to hope for better from Belial feels bad. That's interesting. So in Torment 3, you're not even getting 800 ancestral loot. But I mean, all the bosses drop 750 loot. They just had a chance of dropping ancestral loot. You didn't always get ancestral, so I don't know without that. Beating Uber Belial and it allowing you to choose from loot from specific bosses throughout pools okay. Feels like something more could be done here. Boss powers overall don't feel impactful in the way that witch powers in Season 7 do. Teleporting to bosses directly when clicking their location on the map is a great change. I think it's a poopy change. I think everything that takes away traveling across the world is poopy. Temporary change. I would have it so that everybody had to walk. I'd take away your mount too. I'd be a horrible developer. You'd be like, "Can we teleport directly to the dungeons?" And I would be like, "Oh, sure, yeah, I can let you do that." Not. Then I would take away their horse and make it so they had to walk. Every time you complain, I'm just going to make it harder for you to get to the dungeons. I'm going to put like traps in the way. I'm going to put like a pit of like mud that you got to walk through that like slows you down as you're going toward the dungeon. Like keep complaining. I'm going to put even more like things in the way to make it even harder for you to get to the dungeon.
Well,
Uh, Leveling process to 60 has been slowed down to what seems like a reasonable rate. I personally didn't have enough time to test it. Hmm. Look at some of these other feedbacks.
well, the problem is the overworld is just meaningless for the game.
I mean, it's
They
only
spent
meaningless.
all
It's only meaningless because they made it that way.
that's the problem. They spent all that time to make a great map, and then the only reason to actually be on the map is for HellTides and the seasonal mechanic. If it involves being on the map, like the witch event,
Let's see.
whatever it was
In the
called.
first 2 days,
Witch
I
hunt.
was working hard on leveling and improving my build. At the end of day 2, I got to tier 4 and Paragon 140 plus. The new Torment 4 seems tough. Too tough, but it's not a big problem. I mean, it should be tough. It's the hardest difficulty in the game. Like, I don't know. I feel like the game is being way too babyish. Like we've got all these baby difficulties. You've got like the easy mode, you've got like the hard mode, you got the expert, you got like you got all like the 5 difficulty modes from level 60 that are all baby modes basically. Like anybody with a half decent setup character like flies through those difficulties. Then Torment 1, Torment 2, and Torment 3 have been traditionally like absolutely baby mode as well because anybody who's geared for Torment 4 just demolishes 1 through 3, right? So, like, why wouldn't Tier 4 be difficult? Like, it should be difficult. I don't understand why it's not. Like, especially when you've got, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other difficulties, right? You've got 8 other difficulties that the baby players can go to. Why isn't the hardest difficulty actually difficult? So I ain't got nothing wrong with Pit 4, Torment 4 actually being difficult. Boss knob powers. The numbers are ridiculously too high. 12,600%. Are you serious? Wow, we're right back to D3 all over again. It seems like you have given up making classes balanced and make everyone use boss powers as a primary skill so that the game is balanced, but it's not the right thing to do, and you can't even balance those 24 boss powers. Some of them are much more powerful than others. I suggest that the boss power should lower the damage and interact with class abilities like buff a tag skill, e.g. core skill, basic skills, ultimate skills, defensive macabre. I mean, he's basically saying that the boss skills are like ridiculously overpowered.
They
Scourge
are.
toxins may not work properly. I tried with Spiritborn's Craze the Dead God on the dummies. The dot damage was severe, only several K. Um, Layer boss rework, more bosses, of course, is a good thing. I understand that you think characters grow up too fast, but it looks like 1/4 of the season 7 players, like 4-player party, really. If you hate people teaming up so much, why do you give us the party finder? Wait 20 seconds for Belial to decide whether to intrude. You need to make the game fun to keep players to stay, not in this way. Many bosses got locked HP and changed phases. It's a waste of time. I mean, this is a stupid way of making monster bosses more difficult, like phases where they just can't be damaged. They did that quite a few times, and it was always stupid whenever they did it. Freaking Lilith has like tons of them. They're like, oh, yep, you can't damage her. She flew away. Oh, too bad. If you want to
That's
punish
the most
bots,
annoying
you need a
part
better
about that fight.
solution.
I just hate that fight because you're just plowing through her health bar and then, oh, she's at half HP, has to do like 40,000 different animations before you can actually hit her again. And then after you poke her once, she does it again.
I'm just reading what people gotta say. Current pit scaling is out of touch with reality. I know that many people play with the meta, but it's now clear to progress in glyphs you have to play with only this. If this is passed to the final grades, can we have 2 pit scalings here, like one from 1 to 100, as it is now in Season 7, and like one from 101 to 150, as it is in 2.20? Regarding the Torment tiers, if the above is done, it would leave Torment 4 between tier 80. Or in general, you can reduce the scaling a little bit and redistribute the torments. He's basically complaining that the torments are too hard. I mean, there is something to be said about the glyph leveling and the torments being too hard, is that it gets to the point eventually where you can't level the glyphs if you can't get to the higher torments. So maybe that's what he's trying to say. I like how new bosses and the current bosses, if you want to make it easier, please only do this on difficulties 1 to 3. Leave 4 as it is or go beyond that. I repeat, the bosses in Torment 4 I would leave as they are or go beyond that in the amount of HP at least. Belial doesn't seem like a pinnacle boss. He has little HP. He's weak. He doesn't have phases in his HP bar. Balance the battle against Andariel. LOL. It seems like she's the pinnacle boss instead of Belial. Andariel is kind of a pain in the butt a lot of the times because she has so many like places where she can't be attacked. Season 8 is designed to make money for streamers. Yay, me! To my mind, all argument in favor of Season 8 changes do not track. Slowing down progress does not equate to more fun when the content we are progressing through is exactly the same as the content we have been playing since the game launched. It's fascinating to see those same streamers who have been telling us the game needs to slow down now put out videos telling us the fastest ways to level. It seems to me the game design has been driven by content creators' need to put out new videos rather than what's good for the game. I don't really care about that. Reducing loot drops feeds into the slowing progress down. In Season 6, they made it so you could level up your aspects. That was corrected in Season 7 to some degree, but not, of course, not enough. I mean, honestly, the aspect thing was actually good in Season 6. I liked it. Made you actually have something that you were striving for. Looking for perfect aspects and getting excited when you found them. It was actually really cool. I'm kind of sad that they took a lot of it away in Season 7. Made it super easy to get perfect aspects by comparison. Increasing boss pools, giving bosses no skippable immune phase does not make the game harder or more enjoyable. It makes it frustrating. For season after season, the devs have been trying to create a version of the game where you don't burn through the trash mobs in seconds, but then spend 10 minutes banging your head against a boring boss as you chip down his immense health pool, making the bosses harder in interesting ways, but please don't return to those. So he wants one-shotted. He wants bosses that can be one-shot. That's what he wants. He wants to be able to walk in there and one-shot the boss. That's basically what he's talking about.
I think that's a problem in itself, is that you either have bosses that are one-shot or you waste 15 minutes on a boss. There has to be a healthy balance, but Blizzard don't seem to know how to do that. I'm fine with a
They
boss
don't.
taking 5 minutes, but when it's like 15, 20 minutes, then what's the point?
Apparently the new bosses have insta-death mechanics. It's not
Oh, that's
insta-death.
gonna
You
be
had a fail a mechanic 4 to 5 times before becoming a debuffed. I mean, technically they took away all the instant death mechanics in previous patches, so he might be talking about the debuff that accumulates on you. Leveling
hopefully
glyphs
that
past 46 is pointless. I'm just trying to see what people are saying.
yeah. Hopefully he means that he screwed up the boss fights numerous times, because one them one-shotting you out of nowhere is no fun.
It seems like Season 8 it's going to be entirely built around the boss powers. Like, it doesn't even matter what abilities you're using or what build you choose. It's pretty much just boss powers. I'm kind of glad I didn't actually participate in the PTR because, I mean, I think I'd rather just like see it for myself. The legendary boss powers are way too strong. I am a casual, but I feel the pit bosses and torments in general being so much beefier is actually really a good thing. I enjoy the journey and don't want to be one-shotting tier 4 bosses, not even 2 weeks into a season. But for all the drama, Season 8 isn't even going to be more difficult after early levels because the legendary boss powers are currently doing like 1,000 times more damage than your own skills. Once you get that tier of powers, it's GG. They're so OP they completely dwarf your actual build and your character's own skills to the point that the build needs to be built around the powers instead of the powers being built around your build. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. It can be cool to shake things up, but the current balance means once you get them, you're going to be even stronger than in Season 7, and have no issue getting to Torment 4. They negate almost the entirety of the difficulty changes after early progression. The magic and even most of the rare boss powers, I think, are much more interesting and kind of help weave into builds in more intriguing ways. But the legendary ones are so overpowered that without some significant balancing, we're going to end up with Season 8 being just boss power builds and every single player running around using the same 5 skills, with probably like 2 to 3 of them being on 80% of the builds in the game. And not because they're fun, but because they're going to be the only way you can even play endgame after a certain point at least. I think a lot of that is because Tier 4 bosses and the pit seem overtuned on the difficulty, or rather monster HP, and you're going to struggle to even get your glyphs up to 100, which should still be achievable for casuals in my heated opinion. It just feels like using legendary boss powers as the main power is mandatory, and even then the balance is off where the pit is too hard to get your glyphs up to 100. I could be wrong about that, but maybe with fully stacked build and boss powers, everyone will be creaming pit 150s, in which case it still needs balance. I would say an ideal spot for that people can comfortably reach the point where they can make their glyphs, since that's part of completing your character. But I also just really think that boss powers making up like the vast majority of your potential damage is just so dumb. It makes the majority of what you're even doing with your character pointless. Hmm. Ha ho wah ho wah ho wah. The boss powers are hard to balance, and it goes back to the fundamental problem with the game. Because the monster HP is so high, we take one damage skill and devote all the multipliers to it. You'd maybe like to have a game where you used a single target power and AoE, maybe powers for melee and ranged. Different options for different scenarios. This isn't that game, and we're partly responsible for that. This was the problem right from the start. Early, a lot of attention was paid to the fact that builds all looked the same. Barbs took 3 shouts, Sorc took 4 defensives, and so forth and so on, and devs tried a myriad of ways to change this, but in reality it comes down to the fact that you have 6 slots, and you only need 1 skill for damage, and therefore 5 for utility. And because there aren't that many utility skills, the builds all look the same. Most of your big multipliers are specific to a certain skill or a certain tag or condition. What I did as a meme in Season 7 is now meta in Season 8, PTR. Devote all multipliers to a single seasonal power. That means foregoing 75% modifier on your main skill to get a 30% modifier to the damage because then it affects the boss power. This has to be made those boss powers go crazy. If they nerf them, and they almost certainly will, you're risking the dynamic to where players now take the big multiplier for their main skill again and focus on that while the boss power becomes irrelevant damage. It's very difficult because of how we stack the multipliers so high. I don't know why we have so many multipliers in the first place. Maybe if we didn't have like 10 trillion multipliers in the game, it wouldn't be such a big deal. Hmm. Short feedback. Leveling a character felt much better than before. Also, finding a legendary item felt better during leveling process because the item stayed relevant for a longer time. When I looked at the Paragon system and I see 300 undistributed points, it makes me want to uninstall the game. The player gets way too much power from unfun game mechanics and loot becomes secondary. Reasons I stopped playing. I don't like repeating the same chores every season. If I ignore the chores, my character is crippled. I can't find other players in the Eternal Realm. He plays on the Eternal Realm. That's his problem. There's too much spam for my abilities and my head hurts. Um,
I think what he's saying is that he doesn't want to play seasonal because then if he's like a druid, he has to do that one stronghold every single season.
you
to
don't
keep
have to
it.
do it anymore. They changed it.
Did they really?
Hmm
Well,
If you've
that's
done it
beside the
before,
point.
all you have to do is log into a character that's done it before, and it automatically updates your account, and then your character automatically has it activated.
I didn't know that.
Play the way you want is officially dead. Just logged in and imported my necromancer. Yeah, this is the guy that was talking about. Hmm. I did the same, imported my Hydra Sorceress. Yeah, you don't see many of those in the overworld anymore. Torment 2, Paragon 276, the right gear including 2 mythics, fully masterwork, and I have the correct tempers needed. I beat Varshan, but it took me over 5 minutes just to do that, and that was with me teleporting around the chamber. After I beat him and was opening the chest, 3 uniques, some gold, and 1 egg. Amazing reward. When Bilal showed up, now I was teleporting around the chamber with my hydras out, plus 4 casted heads over 4 minutes, and didn't take anything off his HP. Literally nothing. Ugh, could have just farted again. Then he went to new mechanics, and boom. Oh god, that's terrible. Eh. It burns the eyes. The eyes burn. Cody, what is wrong with you? You don't even care either. Look at you, just sitting there. How do you? I know what you're the size of your nose. How do you not smell that? How? How? Ugh. Dog'em toots. Radioactive dog'em toots. I don't like it. It's radioactive. It burns my nose hairs. So I'm fine with the whole torment level of content that isn't for casual like myself, but if I'm relegated to Torment 3 and I can blast through all overworld monsters, but need luck to defeat any boss of 3 or 4 non-ancestral items, how does that incentivize me to keep playing? A Greater Whisper Cache has 1 item in it? Is that supposed to be funny? Is this with a character that has 3 Paragon 300 and Glyph 100, which isn't a level I normally grind to, so you've just turned the content that was supposed to still exist for players like me, Torment 3 and below, and just turned it into a game that isn't fun to play? Well done. For you, the game won't be fun to play because you won't reach Paragon 300 or Pit 150 in 2 days, but in 2 weeks. Season 8 is the right direction to go. It should be even harder. Diablo 4 shouldn't be a walk in the park. For that, you have Diablo 3. It seems you want to make D4 a worse Path of Exile 2. If you want that, just play Path of Exile 2. I mean, Path of Exile 2 is actually fun to play, except for the multiplayer part of it. Diablo always has power fantasy loot fest. I mean, Diablo 2 wasn't a loot fest, so I would disagree. D3 was a loot pinata fest, and Season 7 was straight up like Diablo 3 loot pinata fest all over again. So Season 7 was over the top. I played about 260 Paragons and saw, I think, maybe like 10 Mythics, and had some truly god tier gear, got some lucky RNG once or twice, and that said, D4 is the friendly ARPG. It's not complicated. It doesn't have a huge end game engine, and its seasons are all basically rethemes of the same concepts, dialing back speed of progression, difficulty, loot needed to happen. However, they slid all of the dials too far, heavy-handed. It's not even that they slid any one of them too far, it's that they slid all of them as far as they did. I think the biggest issue is the amount of loot. D4 is not a game where you craft the best in slot items. You loot them. Like, if there was a way to make the Ancestral Ring that GA'd 5 health per 15 seconds, an ancestral attack speed ring with the right materials, that would be one thing, but there isn't. We are bound by the amount of loot we can find, and I think that's the biggest issue. We need loot to progress, but if there isn't any loot, we can't progress without grinding just endlessly. The most enjoyable grind in this game is probably hordes, but they are locked behind rare keys that you save until you get to a point that you can easily farm T3 at the earliest. Hmm. Hmm. So many reviews. Everybody. So I farmed 142 layer bosses in a row. On tier 3, all on tier 3, my non-boosted spin to win barb, only half broken, not completely busted like some of the other builds. So T3 is what I can face roll in seconds. So what is he trying to say here? My takeaways. Uber Belial being farmable single phase, more of a reward than a challenge, is awesome. As stated by the devs, it's a place to get 800 uniques. Turning into some sort of Souls-like Uber challenge will kill the game for many players. Make an Uber version if you want that. It can give a spark or whatever, like Lilith. Force Phase 3, bosses suck. The idea that we won't be chaining these isn't reality. Force 3 phase bosses suck. He literally has that between every line. The timer is annoying, particularly 30 seconds on Uber Dalal, who has no need of a timer at all. Force 3 phase bosses suck. I deserve a cookie for doing this. Where's my cookie? Force 3 phase bosses suck. Belial spawns more than makeup for the reduced drop rate, although I would have easily been face rolling tier 4 with this build last season. Plus had multiple mythics at the end. Granted, half of them would have been SS rings, well, starless rings. Mythic drop rates seem to be nerfed into the ground, although I'm used to farming tier 4. So you get like max all your gear tier 3 or 2, or you can farm tier 4 for no apparent reason since you already maxed everything. Did I mention Force 3 phase bosses suck?
I think that's specifically looking at Andariel. Seems like a lot of people, when it comes to the layer bosses, are just complaining about the timer between fights.
I mean, if you can one-shot the bosses, then the timer is kind of a big deal. Like you're talking about like the difference between spawning like 100 bosses an hour to like now they've injected a 15-second timer in between each boss, and it artificially like inflates how many bosses you can, like do in that same particular time period. I mean, like,
I'm not blaming them.
I mean,
kind of agree
if you can do 100 in an hour, right, and you've got 15 seconds times 100, then you're going to add on 1,500 seconds divided by 60, which is 25 extra minutes, basically just like slapped on for no reason. Like over 100 boss kills. It's a lot of extra time, and I think I understand why they're doing it. They're saying that like the 15 seconds is apparently given so that like Belial can spawn. So apparently Belial has a chance to spawn like every time you fight a boss or something, and then like they're basically giving it 15 seconds to determine whether or not Belial is going to spawn and try and murder you in between boss kills or something.
Which just nerfs the fact of in the earlier season when they actually made it so that you could just refight immediately. You didn't have to go out of the dungeon, reset the dungeon, and then go in again.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They just undid a buff that they did, or a change, whatever you want to call it.
The reduced XP again until 25 is possibly one of the worst decisions I've seen for the game. The early levels of the game are the worst part of the game, and extending that made the game less fun to progress. If the goal to reduce the constantly upgrade early items is the goal, that doesn't achieve that. All it does is force certain activities to be done. Worldstone events, or world events, HellTides, Nightmare Dungeons, or anything in the form of extra XP attached to it that isn't penalized by this change. It doesn't help the early levels are also the point where outside of insane luck, it's just difficult to play most builds. Trapping players before legendary aspects are readily available means trapping them at a point where the passive tree has to carry them, or they just don't have fun. Apparition incursions, the bulk of what I did for the 60 testing, didn't even provide loot to find minor upgrades regularly. I often found myself heading to HellTides and even Nightmare dungeons to get upgrades as needed. I'm genuinely unsure if my character has bad luck or something changed since I last played, but the whole of the early progression fell off. I don't think I saw a single rare item until roughly level 15 to 20. That's kind of crazy. And that was from a Whisper Cache. Legendary items, and by extension, a build that felt fun to play wasn't there until like level 40 or so. There's also affix scaling. Once I hit 50, everything that dropped was just vastly better than previous levels. Before that, items were at best a minor change, often no larger than 2 to 4 point increase. Then all of a sudden, every affix just gets several magnitudes stronger and forces a huge gear grind to play catch up after being held back. Boss powers. While most are strong, there are still a handful of boss powers that just feel lackluster, and some that are likely just always to be on every build as a modifier boss power. The most obvious of these is Hatred's Embrace Haste. That's literally just a free 50% critical strike chance at max, as it scales from a stat that every build will need to survive, especially deeper into Torment, Shadow Resistance. The only time that this might not be used for rare damage over time builds that just cannot use it at all. Sidrat's Flames has the same issue but uses every elemental resistance to provide a boost to that element. The only time that this isn't useful is for pure physical builds, which are pretty much only Barbarian and Druid. These magic tier boss powers, even compared to rare and legendary modifiers, it's hard to expect anything to ever replace these as modifiers for most builds. As the main boss powers, the inverse is true, with most magic powers being useless outside of maybe Skurk's Toxins. This is mostly due to how niche a lot of the other of these are, both in what they provide and how they trigger. I like the boss powers that the boss powers will heavily determine what builds are going to be good early game with much slower progression. It doesn't leave a ton of options either, which isn't great. Thankfully, it opens up later on, but still limits the number of builds that can be fun early on. He said he's yet to finish his testing. The rate at which we can earn Spectral Ash compared to the rate at which it's spent is just awful for early difficulties. I don't even know what that is.
That's probably the upgrade material for the new powers.
I did try to level almost exclusively with the Apparition Incursions, at least until I realized how awful it was and how much it held back progression, as I mentioned before. Despite heavily running them, I sat at 7 out of 10 of the magic boss powers until level 60, where it became 9 out of 10 for Torment 2. Most of this stuff is kind of poopy anyway. Trying to squeeze what information I can out. It'll be kind of fun to be surprised for the next season, to be honest. I might not. There may be a possibility I'm not playing the next season. I don't even know. The No Rest for the Wicked patch is coming like on like the same. It's like the day after like the Diablo 4 season starts. The new leveling curve doesn't feel great as it forces time arguably worse for protection, slowing things down 40 to 60, particularly 50 to 60 makes more sense. This is around the point where legendaries come up more often and would offer more newer casual player their gear together to take on the pits. As far as boss powers goes, I don't think any of the effects scaling with stats that are very commonly found in most builds, such as elemental resistances, are a good design. Lets them just be extra power for no cost compared to ones that ask for more niche stats like CC duration. Given that each power requires an insane 3,400 Spectral Ash just to max a single power, Spectral Ash needs to be more plentiful, or the upgrade cost needs to be reduced. Things are better in Torment, but why does it need to instantly spike between Penitent and Torment 1? Especially since that means upgrading a power you enjoy will take a minimum of 2 events per level from 7 to 11 and doubles afterward. Sounds like this is going to be the season of the boss powers. That's what it sounds like. The season of the boss powers.
It seems like it's just going to be a massive grind to be a massive grind.
Well, you're going to spend most of your time grinding the boss powers, is what you're going to do. And then once you have your boss power all maxed out and everything's all leveled up, then, like, it'll be fine. But they constantly just keep going in the wrong direction, which makes me angry. Like, they keep making the game more difficult instead of fixing the problems. And because they keep making the game more difficult, they are, as this person says right here, increasing build difficulty kills build diversity. I mean, he's not wrong. Like, there's builds that are going to get left to the wayside because as they increase the difficulty of the game, the builds that were good will be able to keep up. The builds that were bad will not be able to keep up. And it'll just slowly start, like, murdering all of the builds that can't keep up with the increased difficulty. And then they'll have to go back and buff up all the builds that kind of fell to the wayside. If they just decreased the overall difficulty and nerfed the builds that were overperforming instead, like, they would have a much better build diversity. But because they're going this way, they're basically causing the build diversity to always be worse. Like, imagine, if you will, I don't know, like, you have 6 runners and they're all running as fast as they possibly can. And one guy's going 120 miles an hour and everybody else is going 30 miles an hour. And you're like, oh, well, he's really fast. We got to make the racetrack longer to accommodate, this person that can run really fast because he ran the whole course in like 2 seconds. And that's just not fun for people to watch. And then so you make the racetrack longer now. So now instead of running the racetrack in 2 seconds, now the guy that's running at 120 miles an hour is running the racetrack in, 10 seconds. So it's a little bit more visually pleasing to the people who are watching. But the people that were only running 30 miles an hour in the back are now going to take even longer to complete the race than they took before because you just moved the goalpost ahead without actually fixing anything. And that's basically what they're talking about. You move the goalpost ahead and you don't fix the problems, then all of the slower builds, the ones that can't keep up, are just going to fall back. The correct thing to do is to nerf the guy that's doing 120 miles an hour, bring him back in line with all the other builds, and leave the game exactly as it was before. It's the better way of doing it, and it actually increases build diversity. But what they're doing actually decreases build diversity. So they're going the opposite direction, which is basically where only the builds that are powerful enough are going to be able to keep up with the increased difficulty. So, like, your little weird build that you were doing on your Necromancer or something that, like, could barely keep up before is probably not going to be able to keep up now. Well, it sucks that I didn't get much time on the PTR, but at least I got some time on the PTR. I got to at least see the slower, like, leveling process, so that was something. Maybe I'll come back and we'll do some more Diablo 2 today. I do have to work tonight, though, so I might even just decide to get a nap. I don't know. We shall see. Anyway, as always, thanks for joining me. Sorry, I didn't really get much, like, actual testing in. And, keep watching.